On today's episode of Today in World War II, January 27th, German subs sink four Allied ships around England in one day. The Allies make an absolutely pathetic attempt to stop the Japanese invasion off of Dutch East Indies. The U.S. 8th Air Force bombs Germany for the first time. Spoiler alert, it was kind of pathetic too. The Soviets relieve Leningrad finally after almost 900 days of being under siege. In Germany proper, the Germans force about 11,000 Allied POWs to evacuate from Stalag Luft III and to march to an unknown destination in sub-zero temperatures. And speaking of horrible conditions, the Soviet forces reach Auschwitz. Let's get started. Okay, so on today's date, January 27th, 1940, uh, German submarines, German U-boats sank four Allied ships around England in one day. We're still in the happy time, the first happy time that the German U-boat submariners called it. And, this was again the fact that you had um, the Royal Navy had more important fish to fry than to focus solely on not, well, let's say the majority of their forces on convoy duty and going after, organizing hunter-killer subgroups to be able to take the fight to the U-boats, which is what they did later in the war. Right now, we're what, 6 months into the war. The Germans had not invaded the Low Countries, Belgium, Holland. They hadn't conquered France. They hadn't conquered Norway yet. They were kind of bottled up. They had to reach the North Sea from German ports, which were blocked a lot by Norway, Denmark. The Royal Navy was there. Still, they enough subs got out to do a lot of damage, but the Royal Navy also had to be worried about the German surface fleet. And the German surface fleet was already out there. We've seen in earlier episodes that they were raiding and going after merchant ships and so on and so forth. So they had to make sure that they had enough naval groups ready to go after them. All that meant that the U-boats didn't get the attention that they needed at the time. And so they could have days like this where they go out there and pick off these unescorted merchant vessels. Um, I'm a very big follower of how the United States submarine force in the Pacific was able to throttle and choke and strangulate the Japanese from vital natural resources, including fuel. And there's not there they did not have enough subs or didn't give enough priority to escorting ships, and it was just like taking candy from a baby, except in this analogy, you kill the baby with a torpedo. Okay. I don't want to kill you though. All right. I'm gonna be very clear about that. I don't want to kill you. I don't want to torpedo you. I don't want to take the candy from your mouth. You're not a baby. You're a human being. You're a grown ass person. Right. So what you should do is to subscribe to my channel, click the bell, and that way you get notified whenever I drop a new video. You understand I'm doing 365 of these videos before I'm done. So it's a lot of content I'm doing there for free for your edification. So all I ask is that you subscribe to my channel and help me out. Okay. On January 27th, 1942, I'm going to preface this and tell you right now that this was a fiasco for the Allies. Okay. So a Japanese convoy was approaching Endau. They were discovered by the Allies. Reconnaissance aircraft saw them on the night before, and the Allies, sent attack aircraft to, inhibit that. Did they do anything? No. Uh, the Allies are the ones that suffered the heavy casualties. Japanese lost a single aircraft. That was it. Well, then the Royal Navy, the British Royal Navy, uh, sent two destroyers to go after the transports, even though the transports were covered by a much larger escort. So they were going in pretty much almost on a suicide mission. So they tried to go in under the cover of darkness. they were able actually to find the convoy undetected from the Japanese escort, but they couldn't find the troop ships in the darkness. Listen, this was before radar was developed and installed on most Allied ships. So it was like a blind man in an orgy, right? You had to feel things out, and they couldn't find the troop ships, so they tried to disengage. But then the escorts found them. They sunk one of the destroyers. It was a fiasco. So all that work, all those losses, and all they did was force the Japanese to lose one plane. So not very good. But what is extremely good, and I would say it would be magnificently amazing, awesome, is if you like my video and leave a comment. Below the screen, you can see the thumbs up, thumbs down. Just do the thumbs up. And down below, you can leave a comment. Just leave a comment. Say, Don, you're a good guy. Anything. Because the algorithm YouTube has will see, okay, he's getting engagement. We're going to show his feed to more people. And I'm sure there's lots of World War II nerds out there that would love to watch my videos. So I would appreciate it. Thank you. On January 27, 1943, what am I saying? The American 8th Air Force struck Germany, bombed Germany for the first time in the war. B-17s, B-24 aircraft. They attacked Emden and Wilhelmshaven, naval ports for the Germans. Uh, Obviously, look, the numbers weren't there yet. These were, the 8th Air Force had been training. They had been doing bombing missions in France, milk runs, as they called them, to get used to flying together, flying formation, protect each other with their boxes. This was the first time that they were going to fight. They were flying to Germany, but this was nothing like what was going to happen a few months later when they started doing deep raids into Germany to go after, the Messerschmitt factories and the Schweinfurt ball bearing factories, which was just murder if you think about it, because they lost so many bombers. But in this case, it was a nice raid. Um, some forts, but it was experience. They were every day they were moving closer and closer to becoming that colossal force that it would become by the end of the war, and doing all that damage every day. And on today's date, January 27th, 1944, a great day in the history of the Soviet Union. No longer the Soviet Union, so I guess it'd be Russia. The Soviets finally completely lifted the siege of Leningrad. They were able to come in there and fight through, establish a corridor, force the Germans to fall back. And listen to these statistics, okay? It's pretty amazing in a bad way. 200,000 military deaths during the siege, 1.2 million civilian deaths during that period of time. Since if we're logical here, okay, I'm sure the most of the men 18 and up had been, drafted into the army. So who were the 1.2 million civilian deaths? Well, of course they were older, they were elderly people, they were women, and they were children. Again, Nazi barbarism. What can I say? You know, I'm a religious person. I do believe in hell, and I certainly hope and pray that those fascists are there, getting what they deserve for what they did, what they perpetrated against humanity in the very short time they were in power. Again, folks, fascists are the real enemy. Okay, understand that. On January 27, 1944, uh, oh boy, Anzio. Uh, the invasion was commanded by Major General John Lucas. They now had put 70,000 troops on the beach. They had 237 tanks, 508 heavy artillery guns, 27,000 tons of supplies. And what did he do? He sat on his ass. He maintained a defensive posture. He did not try to break out. He just waited for the Germans to come, gave them all the time in the world they needed to to just gather their forces. Kesselring was commanding the Italian campaign for the Germans. He was able to pull troops and tanks and artillery from the Gustav line south of Anzio. That was the whole point, right? Was to bypass the Gustav line. He was able to bring troops from the north and then gather a force that was so powerful that it almost pushed the Americans and the Brits back into the sea. I don't think General Lucas is going to be on the wall of honor when you think about the most brilliant generals in the war of any army, much less the American army. So let's just put it this way: he pooped the bed big time. And again, when generals poop the bed, the rank and file suffer and die. On January 27, 1945, the Red Army was just about, I don't know, 20 kilometers, let's say about twelve miles away from the largest POW camp in Germany, Luft Stalag III. If you know anything about history, you'll know that Luft Stalag III was the site of the Great Escape that led to 50 British flyers being executed by the Gestapo, and to a very unfortunate part of the movie where Steve McQueen was the only POW in fake history to ride a motorcycle all over Germany as a POW escapee. But we'll leave that to a whole different subject. But the 11,000 POWs were forced to march in sub-zero temperatures, and they didn't know where they were going. And a lot of, I don't know how many died, but it was a tough trek, right? Because they didn't have much in the way of winter clothing, and they were forced just to go overnight into, below zero temperatures. They eventually made their way to Spremberg, Germany. Some escaped, though. Some escaped in that march. So, and some of them were able to meet up with the Russians and be able to get back to Allied lines more quickly than the ones that were waiting for liberation. And finally, on January 27, 1945, Soviet troops, the 100th Infantry Division, discovered Auschwitz. And now most of the uh, prisoners had been evacuated previously. And they found like 7,000 concentration camp inmates there. But that was, the bulk had been marched away. But they had run into ancillary concentration camps before, but this was I mean, Auschwitz was the behemoth, the mother of all concentration camps. That's where most of the killing happened. And this is the first time that any major concentration camp was overrun. And yeah, yeah, the truth started coming out in a way that was undeniable before. People were trying to deny it before, but after this, it was hard to deny, except 80 years later when people are now denying that it happened. I'm not going to get started on that. I'm just going to say thanks for watching this video. I appreciate it. I can't wait to get you one tomorrow.